So, hello everyone. My name is Hope Newport, and I'm the Family Services Manager here at the IFOPA. And I know I've been actually interacting with all of you all week, but I don't know if I've ever told you about my background. So just to give you a little bit more insight of where I come from in my role as the Family Services Manager, I am a certified child life specialist. And so what that means is that my educational background is in supporting individuals and families as they face the different challenges and stressors associated with a diagnosis or with treatment or the side effects of their disease or treatment. And it's really focusing on the cognitive, the physical, and the socio-emotional development that that person and that family is experiencing. And so what I have done in my previous roles and what I strive to do here at the IFOPA is just provide as much support to maintain optimal development for that family and for that individual. And so in a lot of pediatric settings, kids are changing and evolving so quickly, and there's a lot of things we do to support them and make sure that they're hitting those milestones. And then once we become adults, a lot of people tend to think, oh, I'm pretty much formed by this point. And I think that's true in some ways, but obviously as adults, we still have the desire to continue to learn and to continue to evolve. And so for our community especially, I think it's important that we create programs that help them do that. And so that's why I really wanted this to be sort of a discussion. I hope you could tell by the title, the partnership and supporting families together, that I really wanted this session to be sort of like a mini think tank to talk about a few of the programs that that we have currently in existence and how we can improve those. And I think it's important to have that partnership because the best way to support the community is through very specific and relevant information. And so gaining this knowledge from the community helps us better understand what that optimal and ideal outcome looks like. From my perspective as someone who doesn't have FOP, I need you guys' feedback to be able to really work towards an outcome that works best for all of you. And then also I think that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity in this relationship and this partnership for people to develop increased confidence and self-esteem. So whenever a community member contributes to something at the IFOPA, we share it with the community and we credit that community, or we credit that member who shared their knowledge. And I think that's a really important opportunity for our kiddos and our adults to have that opportunity to experience increased confidence and self-esteem. And then I also know just from my conversations with new families, and I mentioned this in the Resilient Living Workshop that you were all at, that by connecting newly diagnosed families with existing community members, there is this automatic sort of sense of relief that comes to those new families as well from having that connection with other families and from knowing that the knowledge and the information we're sharing has really been vetted through you guys. It's not something that we as an organization just came up with and said, this will work out. It's something that you all contributed to and are supporting of. And then lastly, I think it's just an efficiency. The more eyes and ears we have looking for solutions and listening for the different feedback that comes in, the quicker we'll be able to reach that optimal end goal. So I appreciate you all for being willing to help support me in this way. And I want to tackle a few different sort of, I don't want to say problem areas, but things that I think I can improve in, or programs that I think we could improve from the IFOPA perspective. So these are our FOP Connect Peer Mentor Program, our Resilient Living Program, and then the opportunities we have for video and webinar learning. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about our Peer Mentor Program. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. What our Peer Mentor Program is, or how we envision our Peer Mentor Program supporting the community, is just an opportunity for individuals from all aspects or all personas of the FOP community. So that is mothers, fathers, caretakers, extended family, spouses, the individuals living with FOP themselves, to come together and really more of a friendship. So a lot of mentor programs are very formal, and there are expectations about how frequently you meet and how long you're conversing. We really wanted this to be something that was accessible for the community. So we set very few limits. We say you can communicate in whatever way is most effective for you. If it's email, if it's telephone, and we say you can communicate as frequently as is effective for you. So maybe you're going through a flare, or your family is experiencing a stressor, and you need a lot of support in that moment of change. But as the change continues and you adjust, you just have less of a demand for that continued support. And so maybe you don't speak or connect with your mentor as often, and that's okay. We would never expect you to carve time out of your life for something that isn't beneficial. So those are some of the things that I think make this program really strong. It's also a great opportunity for one-to-one connection between community members, and to access the additional resources that we offer. So the Resilient Living program that you all participated in was first piloted and trained with our mentors. And so those people have covered all 10 facets of our Resilient Living framework and are able to kind of facilitate exercises or speak to different areas that they could support individuals within that. And so now I want to talk about some of the challenges that I think are kind of entwined in our FOP Connect mentor program, and hear any possible solutions that you guys have. The first is that my greatest opportunity to really recommend and support this program, refer people to this program, is when I interact with newly diagnosed patients. So they come to me and they're very much in this moment of seeking or looking for support or guidance. And so I, of course, always mention the program, but I think that for a lot of people, when they're newly diagnosed, if they've looked online and Googled images, they may not be ready to connect with the community. They need more time to process what's going on. And then there's just, the additional fact that when you're newly diagnosed, you're being bombarded with a lot of different information, medical information, resource information about different, maybe state programs that are available to you. And so this is kind of one more thing that I think tends to get lost in the shuffle. And so those are some of the things that I think have made it difficult for some of our new families to continue to tap into this resource after I've initially shared it with them. And then also, I think our support for FOP page, which is a tremendous resource to our community, I think takes the place of our mentor program in some ways. You have in the support for FOP page mentorship in essence from hundreds of individuals across the world who have a loved one who with FOP or who are diagnosed with FOP. And I always see people posting questions there and getting responses, and it's very effective and it's very quick. And it's a great way to access a large pool of knowledge. And so I think that has kind of taken the place of the one-to-one mentor relationship in a lot of ways. But I think there are some issues with that, mainly that it's difficult to ask private questions in an open forum like that. So maybe some of our families haven't been able to express some of their needs as honestly or as forwardly as they like. So some solutions that I have considered for these problems are, if people are going to support for FOP and posting questions about very specific, insurance questions, for example, then they're getting that feedback from the community, but could we also have a mentor in our FOP Connect Peer Mentor program who is sort of maybe the point person or someone who specializes in that area, so that if someone is interested, we could connect them with someone who has that experience. And then also, just going ahead and introducing new families and having them make that initial contact upon diagnosis. That way that person, the newly diagnosed family, has that information to fall back on when they are ready. So it puts less of the burden on them to reach out to me when they're ready and say, okay, now I want to be paired with a mentor. Can you connect me with someone? It's something that we would do a little more automatically and that they would have in their email inbox to go back and reference when they needed it. So those are some of the things that I think might be helpful, but I would be interested to know, from your perspective, I think prior to hiring the family services manager within the community, I know that older woman, Nancy Sando, who has FOP, would often connect with newly diagnosed families, and she would mentor a lot of them. She knows a lot of people in the FOP community, and I think that's because she played that role for so long. And so I know that this type of support has been available for some time, but I'm curious to know if you all have feedback about how maybe you think it would have been helpful to be able to participate in a mentor program. Does anyone have thoughts on that?
So, just a very big difference between my wife and I.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I never felt like I necessarily necessarily wanted to seek out other people who had, family. Oh, thank you. I never felt like I wanted to seek out other people who had family members with FOP, but it was very much a need for my wife to connect with somebody. And when Sarah was diagnosed, it was in the days prior to the internet, and so it was quite a while before we finally made contact with anybody. And the first person that she ever talked to was Jeannie Pieper. And, in those days, it was in the initial startup of the IFOPA. But so I think it's very different, even within a family, as to what sort of outside connection you want. Since that time, this is my third family gathering. I feel like I get what I need when I come here, and it's really good, but I wouldn't say that I've made any lasting friendships or that, I enjoy interacting with the FOP community when I'm here, but I would not say that I've ever reached out since then. But Lisa is very active on the Facebook stuff, and she gets that. So from a new family perspective, I guess it's different, right? It's different for each individual. And so I think it's good to put it out there, but for myself personally, if I started getting calls from another father with a kid with FOP, probably wouldn't have been something that I would have been appreciated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think one thing that's interesting to me is that a lot of times in the new diagnosis conversations or the introduction conversations I have with newly diagnosed families, it's just one component of the family. It's just the mom, most frequently. Sometimes it is the dad, and so it's also hard to tell if that person, doesn't appreciate or doesn't feel like they can benefit from a peer mentorship. Then are they sharing that knowledge with the rest of the family? Is there maybe someone else there who could benefit from that but isn't getting the opportunity to connect to that resource because it's not making it past that initial gate? So we are doing the new packet, the new referral packet that we'll be giving to our doctors to hand out to families in the US and in countries all over the world where we have doctors who are sort of a point person for FOP. And so that may be a good opportunity to get that information into everyone's hands and give them the power to select, who it's effective for.
Yeah, and I would say similarly on that, one of the biggest frustrations that Lisa has with me is if she goes to a doctor's appointment and gets information or whatever, and then she comes home and I ask her a lot of follow-up questions, and then it's like, well, if you were that interested, why didn't you just go? Why didn't you, make it to the doctor's appointment? Because, I didn't, she didn't get the answers that I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's a challenge too.
Yeah, that is good information to be aware of. So the next program I want to talk about is our Resilient Living program. And I was like, I'm going to need to explain this. But you guys were all just in the workshop. So I don't know that I need to dive too deeply into it, but I will. Nadine, I know you weren't at the Resilient Living workshop, so to give you a little bit of insight, and Kelly, the Resilient Living program is these 10 facets of resilience. So I know the print is kind of small, but I hope you guys can still kind of make out, what composes this framework of a resilient day-to-day life or resilient living. These habits that we do throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the years to help protect our really emotional well-being and our mental health. And I think that this boils down to 4 things. It is sort of the emotional expressiveness component of, being able to feel your true feelings, and then being able to have some self-calming skills so that when you are experiencing these feelings, you have some habits or some learned behaviors that you can use to help calm yourself down. The idea of being able to restructure your thought patterns to find optimism and hope and positivity in situations that can be very challenging and seem very negative. And then lastly, knowing what it is you can do to counteract those challenges, mentally, but also physically. What are some of the self-care activities you can implement into your daily life to help you be able to bounce back from those stressors? So that is sort of a snapshot of the Resilient Living program. So far, as I mentioned, we have trained the mentors in our peer mentor program. We just led a workshop here at the family gathering, and we do weekly social media posts so that people can sort of access that knowledge. When we talk about incorporating it into our day-to-day life. I think having it on social media and being able to like scroll through it when you're looking at your Facebook feed or whatever is a good way to do that. But there's several other things that I'm interested in piloting or trying to incorporate this program in throughout the year. And one of them is a podcast or a book club where we could focus on either a book that is resilience-based, so something that's sort of a continuing education. If you're interested in learning more about resilience or specific aspects of self-care or of your mental health, that we would choose a book that kind of falls within this topic or subject matter, and then be able to explore that over the course of several weeks or maybe several months with a group of people who have selected to be in this book club. Or I'm considering, would it be better to do something that is really more of a form of self-care and choose something that's a little less heavy, maybe just a specific genre of a mystery novel or a mystery podcast, and do something so that people can enjoy a little bit more. It's a little bit more leisurely when they're interacting with this group, and it's not as education-based, I guess you could say. So those are the two different ideas that I have for the podcast or the book club, and I'm interested to know if you think either one of those would be particularly more favorable, or if you would prefer to participate in a podcast or book club that focuses on continuing to learn about resilience as opposed to a mystery novel or something like that. So the next thing that I'm interested in, hearing people's feedback on is the format for a community training that I'd like to do. So you were able to, do the workshop here at the Family Gathering that provided people with an opportunity to get a really good foundation in the Resilient Living Framework, but there's additional faucets that we didn't cover, and then there's faucets that I think everyone else would like to, or an opportunity that everyone else would like to have the full sort of framing and experience to learn about the Resilient Living Workshop. So I guess one thing I would like to know is, do you think it would be helpful to have one large training where, over the course of a month, we do several heavy, like multiple hour sessions where we try to cover those 10 faucets within a compact amount of time and with one small group? Or do you think it would be more accessible to have maybe workshops that we spread like one every month and we cover a new topic and people can kind of sign up for what seems helpful or relevant to them? Sarah, you're shaking your head, so I'm going to... Okay. Yeah. And then, so also within the community trainings, one of the things that I've struggled with is just figuring out, how long to make those sessions. So, I mean, you guys participated in the workshop. Do you feel like after 2 hours, you were pretty much like to a point where you needed a break, you needed to step away? I felt that that's kind of the maximum amount, and I think that maybe even something closer to an hour or an hour and a half may be best, because I think 2 hours can also just start to feel a little long. So timing-wise, I welcome your feedback on that. But the last thing for the Resilient Living program that I'm interested in is figuring out ways that we can identify, our mentors have all received this training. So those are the people who we share with the community are a good connection if community members want to receive this knowledge directly through other community members. But I'm trying to figure out other ways that we can connect people with those sort of community champions, so that if someone isn't a mentor but they wanted to be acknowledged or available to work with other community members, that we could kind of put them forward as a connection for that. So those are the things that I am, trying to put my brain to, and as I said, I think it's helpful the more perspectives we can have to work towards those goals. I look forward to, if you have ideas that strike you in the middle of the night as you're trying to fall asleep, drop me an email. I'd love to hear it.
So on this topic, for me, I think maybe a combination, right? Are you familiar with Khan Academy?
No, I don't think I've heard of that.
So Khan Academy is a learning website, K-H-A-N.
Okay.
They do all kinds of different topics, but it's done in a podcast video type format. But maybe if you could do something like that, where maybe the content was delivered in a podcast or video type format, and then schedule opportunities for people to get together and have discussions about it.
Like a
chat.
video conference, yeah.
Video conference type thing. Because that way they can go through the content of the material at their own pace, at their leisure. But you might just say, oh, we're going to have this session on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock. We're going to do a video chat session. But before you come to the video chat. Okay, sorry. I forgot we're recording. But so for the video chat session, you say prior to the video chat session, please review, the training material.
Yeah.
So that you can review their training material at your own leisure, but then you can still have an interactive portion where people can get together online to discuss it.
And I think that's a great idea because then it would also make it accessible to anyone, anytime they wanted to. So you wouldn't have to be participating in this specific training. You could just go to our YouTube page or wherever we store it and watch those as you have an opportunity to.
Yeah, the Khan Academy stuff, I can be learning about whatever I want to learn about physics, or most of it's, educational type. But you can start it and stop it whenever you want. I can review 15 minutes of it at break, at work. It gives you that opportunity to just do it whenever you have the time to do it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
If you pick the right time to communicate with a video chat, you take it globally.
Yeah, and I think the timing is hard. You said like a Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Like we could do that for people in the U.S. To have a somewhat similar time frame. For some people it may be 6 p.m., for some people it may be 9 p.m. But then globally, I think it's also worthwhile to look at having times that I know align with some of our families in Europe who speak English and may be able to communicate together in that sort of similar setting. The other thing we've looked at is partnering with our International President's Council leaders. So Kelly, as I mentioned, is our IPC leader from South Africa, and giving them the knowledge, helping them identify, who are the people in your community who identify this as something worthwhile that they want to devote their time and resources to learning more about, and then helping those people, training those people so that they can then share it with their community. So it's really about putting it out into the hands of the community as well. And then last of all, I wanted to talk about just our video and our webinar learning. So in this past year, we did 4 different webinars. They were on medical cannabis, the transition to an adult care provider, Disney accessibility and planning. That one was specifically for this. We wouldn't necessarily pick something so specific, but it was for the family gathering attendees. And then the introduction to resilient living. So real quickly, I would just like to hear if you guys have thoughts on maybe a topic that would be that you would be interested in learning or hearing about in webinars in this coming year. I think it's like the resilient living, a video education can be something that we record and then people can go back and watch. So it's really, in addition to the general session recordings that we have and that we post online, just another way for you to have for those visual learners, something that they can. So if you have any suggestions on what specific content you would like to see in those, I would appreciate you sharing it with me. And I think you already answered maybe some questions I had about the timing of, doing it later in the evening at 9 p.m. may be the most efficient time for us to get the largest group of people. So.
I hope. If you know who's anticipating, you can take the timeline.
Yeah.
And then make.
So really personalize it to the audience, like who wants a topic or who wants to attend a webinar on this topic? Okay, you've all responded, what time works best for you? Yeah, that's a great suggestion. It's really personalizing it, which I think is the most effective way to do it.
Just in terms of a topic idea, a lot of people have books and resources that they've shared with me for school and getting kids into school. But something that would be really nice would be to have a webinar on maybe parent perspectives and how they educated their school and how they educated younger children without sort of, singling out the child. Because, in South Africa, we sort of can't print out a million resources, but I can say, or one of the parents can go to that school and give them a short, information session, things like that, we would find really helpful.
Great, thank you. Well, lastly, before we introduce our next speaker, oh, Sammy, oh, do you have a question? Sorry, go ahead.
I was wondering if you're going to include self-advocacy.
In a webinar? Yeah, that is a great suggestion. So we do have some advocacy and awareness projects that we do throughout the IFOPA. Those are a little outside of the Family Services branch. They're obviously very connected. But I think it would be good to do a webinar on that topic and partner it with some of the family service resources that we could offer to support and go along with that. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you all for your feedback in this very intimate setting. I've enjoyed the opportunity to learn from you all, and I wanted to say thank you because, as I mentioned in the beginning, I really do feel that all the work that I'm able to do is because of the knowledge and experience that you all share with me. So thank you for taking the time to do that and for being so open to someone in my role to be able to help us develop more resources in the FOP community.